Hey y'all, today on the farm it's finally time to start planting. We're gonna start putting some corn seed in the ground today. Got a long way to go, got a lot of crops to plant in a short period of time, and this is where it all begins. This corn seed, as you see, has a treatment on it, but I am going to be adding to each bag a cup of talcum powder. And the reason we put powder in there on the seed is because powder is a dry lubricant. We don't want anything wet or moist inside the planters, but we want the seed to be lubricated so it will slide through the planters, across the plates and through the tube, and everything goes nice and smooth. We want everything to slide and keep moving, and so it has to be lubricated to do that. And you can't use moist lubrication because that would make everything come up and stop. It may germ the seed before we want the seed to germ, so we use dry lubricant. Some of these videos I make look like they take the place over the course of one day, but sometimes they take the place over the course of a couple of days. This is one of them videos. This particular planter hadn't been out of the barn in a couple of years, and so when we got it out to get ready, I replaced a lot of parts on it and serviced it up and greased everything and blew it off and got it all as what I thought was as good as we could get it. But when I got it all loaded up with corn seed and out in the field, things did not go well yesterday. We fought this bear. Dad come out there to help me, and we fought this planter kicking and screaming till 9 o'clock last night. Didn't get a lot of seed planted, but I think we have remedied all the issues. I believe it's gonna plant really good today. We've changed a few little things. I think everything's working, so here we go, day 2. For those of y'all who aren't familiar with Southwest Georgia and Lower Alabama, we have a spring here. Our spring season is about a day to a day and a half. So 2 days ago, it was 30 degrees when I woke up in the morning. Right before the kids left to go to school, my hall thermometer said the outside temperature was 29. Yesterday, it was 85 degrees when we were trying to plant this corn. So I reckon our spring was that day right there in between 29 degrees and 85. So winter's over, spring has come and gone. It was a nice one-day spring again as usual, and it's summertime in Southwest Georgia. This is what I'm watching in the tractor all day. Those black graphs represent each one of the planter row units in the back. I'm targeting 30,000 seed per acre. Right now I'm averaging 30,700. Right here I have what the min, so row 11 is hitting my min number, and my max number row 5 is actually putting out a little more, and there's my average. And so I watch that screen right there all day, and I'm looking back here behind me because a dirt clod could get trapped in between the closing disc or on something back there and cause it to dig up the row, and I don't want it to dig up the row. I want the row to be covered up. So you're always watching, making sure everything's rolling right back there, and a alarm or a little buzzer will go off if something's wrong here. There's sensors on every row unit checking how many seed are coming by, telling me in real time. So if one row unit's putting out too little, so here we go, an orange one. If one of the row units falls behind, it'll turn orange so I can see it. And then if it gets too far behind, instead of black or orange, it'll turn red, and a beeper will go off and say, hey, row unit number 3 isn't planting. And that way I know to stop, pick the planter up, and check out row unit number 3, see what's going on. So it's very, very automated. If you're familiar with my videos where I'm planting green beans and peas and that sort of thing, this planter system is the exact opposite of that one. That one's very unautomated, super old school planter, reliable as it gets, hyper reliable, but opposite end of the spectrum from this planter here. As far as my tractor setup, I do have my rev limiter set. So my RPMs are maxing out at 1800. It's very important that you keep everything exactly the same. You can do if I have a varying ground speed or varying RPM, you know, if my RPM is different, then my vacuum would be different, and so that would cause the seed to suck to the plates differently. They may not release. They may be sucked too hard. They may not be sucking enough, and so I had to keep my RPM the same so that my vacuum remains the same. I had to keep my ground speed uniform because whenever I find that sweet spot where they're seeding just right, I want to stay on that ground speed. So I don't need the full RPM range of this engine to pull this planter. I just need 1800 RPMs. That's very fuel efficient. It gets the job done. And so I have a rev limiter set at 1800, so I just take my throttle, push it all the way, and even though my throttle's all the way, I'm going to stop at 1800 RPMs. Not going to let the engine go any higher. I have my field speed pushed all the way forward and rolled on my thumb wheel down to 4.8. I'm just cruising at 4.8. My seed rate is right. With different plates in the planter and different seed shapes, different vacuum pressures, you might could get up to 6 miles an hour planting, but right now everything is working perfectly at 4.8, so I'm going to roll 4.8. Most corn planters are set up with twin press wheels. They're mounted at an angle to each other, and they firm up a little tiny zone right where the seed is at. So it's a nice, firm, narrow seed bed. But down here in the southeast, a lot of farmers use what's called a cotton press wheel. So instead of two small wheels angled toward each other, we have one wheel that levels a large flat surface, less direct pressure, more of a broader even pressure. And the main reason we use these cotton wheels is this right here. We have red clay down here. These dirt clods that are made out of red clay, if one of them were to pass between those twin press wheels, it could possibly get stuck, wedging itself between those press wheels. And then as I'm going along, it would be dragging, and it would be opening up the seed furrow, throwing the seeds out of the area where they're supposed to be, throwing them out here in the row middle, and leaving a ditch where the row is. We don't want that. That's no good. So to combat that issue, we use this wide cotton press wheel. These planters are chain driven. So there's a chain that goes to a front axle, and that axle connects just these 3 wing units. There's another wheel system and chain system for the other 3 on that wing, and there's a separate system for the middle section. The way they work is this drive wheel will impact the ground when I lower the planters, and as it turns, it spins a chain what goes to each planter and tells it to drop corn seed. I like the fact that we have a different drive wheel per each wing, because if I get to the end of the field here, I don't have room for 12 rows, I can take those wings, fold those wings up, and just plant the 6 rows in the center, because those wings, then their drive wheels not be impacting the ground once I lift the wings up. And so I can plant with just the 6 in the middle without those outside 3 on either side pouring seed out everywhere and wasting it. So each section has its own drive wheel, so they all operate independently of each other. I'm putting this corn seed in the ground about 1 3/4 inches deep. That's, compared to other things we plant, that's pretty deep. On that end of the field, I have a lot more red clay, and you see here it's still primarily clay, but it's a little darker brown. As I get to the back of the field, it's a little bit sandy. So I'm shooting for 1 3/4 inches, but on part of the field, I'm in the sand, it may be getting down around 2 inches. And when I get up there on that hard red clay in the front, it may only be going 1.5 inches. You got to kind of weigh all that stuff out and find a happy medium and get the best you can. I was looking back and saw a little ditch being drug out. And so here we had the culprits. Cotton stalk, not fully decayed cotton stalk. A couple of them in an area. So they got caught in between these closing discs with a dirt clod. Closing discs couldn't close the furrow. They just started dragging these cotton stalks, and that created a little ditch. What means my seed, so there's my seed right there. Seed's not barely covered up. Because instead of closing the furrow up, the closing discs are actually dragging it open. So I have shallow planted seed. There's one right there, you can see it. So I'll come through here and kind of cover that up a little bit. Got to keep a sharp eye on that kind of stuff. That kind of thing happens. You can't just put the tractor on autopilot and turn around in a row. You constantly looking at everything, keeping up with it, because if you don't, you will have a mess on your hands before you know it. As the day goes on, I'm having to constantly adjust my vacuum and my ground speed because the planters get more lubed up, or there's more or less seed in the hoppers. It causes a different amount of pressure, so my flow changes. So I have to change my vacuum and ground speed so that I try to maintain a uniform seeding rate. In order to get that uniform seeding rate, I got to constantly be adjusting things, changing things, because if I just pick one speed and one vacuum pressure and run all day, I won't get the results that I desire. I got to constantly be adjusting and fine-tuning in order to maintain the same results. And that's just all part of it. The sun is going down, but the planter's still working good, and I got a long way to go and a short time to get there, so I'm going to keep on rolling. But I thank all of y'all for watching, and I'll see you next time.